so much. Congratulations, Logan.
Congratulations to Logan and his family. Thank you for coming down. And just a reminder, we are being videotaped and live streamed on Facebook. And we're going to approve the minutes now. Pete, would you mind?
Sure. Excuse me. Resolved upon recommendation of the superintendent, Board of Education hereby accepts the minutes of March 27, 2018, regular meeting as submitted. Second that.
Thank you, Ed. Any comments? All in favor? Opposed? That's carried. I'll now turn it over to Mr. Brasdale for his report.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen of the board, would you please join me down below in my report. Up there. Sorry. This evening, my superintendent's report is kind of a two-parter. First part is going to be a little bit of bragging. We do hope to present and accept the budget this evening. And if you haven't been reading our signs outside or seeing our Facebook post, we have had a lot to brag about this year, other than being a reward school again, the third consecutive year. But on top, you can see that we had some staff members who received quite a bit of recognition. Scott, Athletic Director of the Year, Matt, Wrestling Coach, I'll let you read, but we have quite a bit. Our Ocean Bowl team, very successful tomorrow, as a matter of fact. They're in a national competition, and we'll expect them to do well. We had a young man compete, first runner-up at Hofstra in the spelling bee, and it goes on. One I particularly like to point out, Albert Gao, his score on the AP Advanced Placement Computer Science A exam was a perfect score. That's the first perfect score ever on an AP exam in this district. And he was number 112 in the world. That's quite a thing to brag about. We have all of our musical things to celebrate. Scamia starts here tomorrow at the high school. We haven't hosted Scamia for a long time. So we'll show our district off a little bit to a number of districts, as we have over 300 visitors here tomorrow. And then our FBLA team, again, did very well in the States, and they will be going to the national competition as well. And you see our New York State Wrestling Champion. Look at our winter sports, for example, the success there. We're talking about academics. Boys cross country team, league champs. Boys winter track, league champs. Girls cross country, undefeated league champs. Varsity girls winter track league, boys winter track. New Zealand Long Island students. Girls basketball undefeated. It goes on and on. But we are very fortunate and good luck to be proud about the district athletically, and academically, and musically. Now, as I've been doing the last few months, because we're moving fast and furious from the tragic events in Parkland, February 14th, we've been doing a lot of work on security. And I'll try to highlight what we're doing now most recently, but this is work we are doing every day. As a matter of fact, in exec session, we again address security issues. We are doing it every day. So it's important to know we have a school resource officer who certainly played a major role in Maryland in the shooting event. But unfortunately, in Suffolk County, New York, the resource officer has 92 schools that he attends to, and of course, we're worried about response time. We have 2 security guards outside roaming the areas, circulating the buildings, locking doors. We've had that for 3 years now. We first attempted with guards. Okay, now we're ready for the budget presentation. Thanks, Ken. How's grand jury doing? Wonderful. True bill. Thank you, Ken. With the state's permission and the formula that applies, this year we have a 1.95 tax cap. And you'll see that, how that works in the formula and the budget of the district. The board is always committed to keeping our programs intact that works academically very well for our students without piercing the cap. So you must budget within our tax cap of 1.95. Okay. Again, we compare March. I was telling the folks who've been here since January, our first month, it morphs every month. The more information we get, whatever we purchase, particularly since February, with the security measures, the board has decided to invest in that security. We're talking about bond. We're realizing this bond that would take 2 years ago, should the community, 2 years later, should the community approve it. We need things fixed now. So you'll see a capital project that we reserve money for, comes out of the fund balance. So things have changed a lot since January. The difference now with this month, April, we have definite figures. We guess at the state aid, we know what our state aid is, and as you can see up on state aid, we have got an increase which we did plan on, and it's a good another addition of $209,000 towards our budget. But the good news is the board wisely created an incentive with our teachers. It's a 3-year deal where our teachers will tell us we can plan for 3 years who's retiring and what that means to us. This year that plan brought in 6 retirees. 1 retiree's money was counted in last month's budget because we knew about him. But we have 5 additional. So the savings of $265,745 is a result of where our retirees were and the difference to replace them. So that's another savings of $265,000 and $209 from the state. What does that mean? Well, when you get that additional money, it goes into the fund balance and in our budget. So we thought, as we presented in March, that we would have to appropriate out of our fund balance, $1.9 million. What's changed this month is, with the definite numbers, it's 1.480. So a difference of $474,000. Thank you, our retirees. And you'll see our total revenues and our tax levy, 1.95, brings in $40,117,000. And hopefully you can see this. We're going to show you a different group of views of the fund balance tonight. This is the one we were showing basically in March, similar to February. But here's the difference. We did have a large fund balance. I spoke in January and February how that happened. When a fund balance, when many things are unspent, fund balance accumulates over the years, and we had a state audit. You had one 5 years ago. Every district has it. When they tell you, spend down your fund balance. Well, since we need things immediately, like fixing only 1/3 of the high school roof, 1/3, but the worst third, and replacing fields and tracks that could be condemned anytime, our turf field and surroundings. That was 4.2 in the first few months. That is this, the 4.2. That we have increased that to 5 from the fund balance. Why? We're adding more security measures, perimeter fencing. If it's security, how can you wait 2 years for the bond to kick in when you need that fencing and security of perimeter now? So add up the field, add up the high school roof, and security. We're taking $5 million of the taxpayers' money and putting it into a capital project. And we hope that that's voted on and approved in May, and here's the key. You have to remember, that's no additional cost. That money's been in the fund balance. You have already paid into that. That is your money. So the board decided to cut that fund balance down and almost cuts it in half if you look at the difference, that $5 million. What else is new is a capital reserve that will be placed. The board can elect to about 15 years, decide what they want to put in each year. And what do we need to do now? We know what we're putting in the bond, but we may find some of those things have to be fixed sooner than 2 years. So by dedicating more money out of the fund balance, which costs you nothing, it's your money, we reduce the fund balance further going out. So if you look at it this way, with the 1.9 state-approved tax rate, $5 million transferred to capital project to fix our track, our fields, high school roof, and fencing, and 400 appropriate, we get down to 8.6 by the end of this year. Look at next year, 5.7. 5.7. So the fund balance that we saw earlier is almost cut in third. Then 1920, fund balance reduces to 3.5, and the state, as all of you know by heart, allows you 4% fund balance. Although, as Lynn reminds me, on the state legislature's desk is an approval of 6% allowable in fund balance, but they didn't sign it. And then we go out safely to 2021, so that's 3 years. Being good, all right, putting money into security, putting money into needed repairs immediately at a 1.95 with the capital reserve each year and with a major transfer to capital projects at $5 million. So that's the scenario that we could do now because that is our tax rate. And we already, the board voted to put that $5 million in there. What they really have to determine, all of us, is how much of that capital reserve are we going to put in. That's up to the board. Now here's a different scenario. What if we took that 1.95 I just presented and we increased the capital reserve? So to take more money, do more repairs, or as we deem them fit every year. Here's the thing with capital reserve. That money can be there, it can be used. If the board's going to use it for purposes that voters have to vote on. Okay? And they don't have to use the whole $750. But what they might do is say, hey, this is in the bond, we need to get this stuff done now, and that money makes it possible to get those things done. And what is that $5 million capital project? And what do those capital reserve things do? They will bring down the eventual cost of that bond. Because I'll tell you right now, that $5 million, those things that we have in there at this time, that was all on top of the bond when we first met and talked about it. Okay? So this is using taxpayer money to spend it down. Bob?
Just to point out, 3 years ago we had our last capital reserve. That capital reserve did exist. We did things, we repaired the portions of the middle school roof, the tennis stadium was done. There was repairs, capital level repairs, not just general maintenance. Behind the middle school, because we were using that for equipment, we tied that in and put in a big basketball court. For those of you who may have seen it in the past, years ago it was just a mud field. That became, we cemented that over and put up 5 or 6 basketball courts. That's what you're talking about, and why it's important to look at developing a fund again that makes sense going forward that you can draw from. It's almost like an annuity or a house maintenance account that you pay attention to so that you take care of as many of the smaller items as you can going forward. We're jump starting it with a 750. If you notice at the bottom, the fund balance does not change that significantly. The fact that you may have 750, that really is, just look at that as, that's going to the students. It's maintaining their buildings, it's maintaining their property, And if we are in a position to go forward with additional contributions, you don't want to put too much because it's encumbered. You can't now spend it for other things, but it gives us that option, and it is a very fiscally responsible process to go forward. Maintain what you have, add to what you have, just like you do in your home. Take your time, do what you can each year, and going forward with a plan of that. And that's what is supported by that kind of upfront payment into reserve.
Right. You know, and it struck me just the other day, maybe you've thought about it, but, you know, by walking around the buildings, driving the campus, which I think is very attractive, it hit me, the elementary school is 60 years old. Middle school is 50 years old now, more than that. And our high school is 26, 27 years old. So you have to maintain things. That happens with age. And there are things in all three schools that have to be maintained, and that fund will work very well for that. If you look at the bottom line of the fund balance, again, like the last slide, maintaining a 1.95 allowed by state, although you're increasing the 750, as Bob said, and that is not a lot out of the fund balance, you still go out safely another 3 years. You still do. It's very similar to the last slide I showed you. We decrease the balance at this year in half, then it goes down to 5.1 instead of 5.3, and 3 and 0.3 instead of 0.8.
And you see at the back end, the 2021 is when we start to see the smaller class size start to move themselves all the way through the school, that we will start to see a change in our class size, and therefore, as we've brought in teachers, we can look at overall what's needed or where they're needed. So it's not as scary at the back end because we know that there's a population change coming. It's just not happening in the first few years. It's at the other end where we see no longer 200 or 230 kid classes. We see 150, 140. That's going to change because we will not have sections going forward, so that we can accommodate, as we move forward, further savings that can be found in those last years.
Right, those last big classes are just entering the high school now. Last large groups. Some are even smaller than what Bob told you. But amazing, when you try to plan them, we now have 134 kindergartens right now coming in. People want to live here. They're moving here to go to our schools. But once those two big groups out, you will be seeing a staffing change at the middle school and high school. Now, another view is some people say, well, what if you didn't put the 1.95 in? What if you went with a 0? And there was a district named Sachem who about 3 years in a row, John Shaker said yes. Do you remember that Charlie, who was the superintendent's last name? No, everyone knows Charlie, but that was his last name. He got quite a reputation by having 0 fund balance 3 years in a row. He left, he was hired in Plain Edge because this guy was so great, he could have a 0 tax levy, and they hired him, and then Sachem, as you can read constantly, is always in financial trouble, always. Now what happens if we do that, and if I need to direct your attention to the difference line 21819 in the tax levy. Okay, let's look at what it was. See the 40,117 and 1819 on the tax levy. Now, if you don't increase the tax rate to 0, you're at 39.3. That's a difference of 700 and what is that one? $60,000. So what happens is you don't really make that money up if you let that tax levy go into the future. So how do you do it? How do you make up for that money? You got to go to your bank account. You have to go to your fund balance and appropriate more money. So if you look at the line above that, it's much higher than we have to appropriate if we go with 1.95. See the difference what you're appropriating? 1.4 to 1. Immediately you're jumping up much faster. What's the end result of the 0? Now the thing is, you'll still have $5 million for traffic transfer to capital, but you're not seeing any reserve, capital reserve. So you're not even taking that money out. But look at what a zero plan does. Look at the bottom line. By that safe year of 0.8 or 0.5, 0.3, it's now a negative 2.6. So if you look throughout, we diminish our fund balance, our savings account much faster, and we're safe for 2 years versus 3. Mr. Pete?
Or just to kind of reference your comments about Sachem, Sachem also had an issue with capacity in the school, the underutilized school, and that was a driver, not just the 0% tax levy that you referenced, but some of their financial issues were also, they had to close schools because some of them were basically at 60% capacity. So that's part of the equation also, is just that in a vacuum, that 0% tax levy caused the problems.
Right. There are
The
numerous.
reason why they solve the problems is reduce capacity, close the buildings, and have a better shape, just as a reference.
This slide shows sort of the other end of the continuum, and that you're trying to find the sweet spot between preparation going forward, maintenance, projects, things like that, while also maintaining within the cap, maintaining the services and the program going forward. This just is illustrative of, this is the other end. And you're now at a point where what you've done is changed your timeline to a drop below what is recommended, a 4% cap. And let's assume that that's going to stay as is. You've dropped below that, so that if we had to dip into that for new, even better fences, we wouldn't have that money. And we would not be in a position yet where we have that real decrease in population in our homes. And that it happens too far out. So this is meant to illustrate that sweet spot where you have a very strong investment into your facilities here with that $750,000 deposit, if you will. You are also maintaining the rest of the programs going forward through that 5-year period.
That's right. So that's our third scenario. Okay, so what does this mean for the average taxpayer in our son? Let's see what the total budget is. It's increased to 1.57. You'll see what we're appropriating last month. You'll see last year we were 1.8, only doing 1.4 because we have that 265,000 from our retirees and 209,000 from the state. You'll see our tax levy, our assessments, what all that means. And again, it's allowable at 1.95, 15% monthly additional charge for our taxpayers. Now, here are the things to think about. Our budget is $60 million. Now, this capital project, I've said it for months, does not cost the taxpayers anything, but you must approve that $5 million being transferred into that project. We need voter approval. We need people to come out and vote yes on that. Those things that are covered are much needed. Again, it won't cause any increase in the tax levy amount. The other thing that we're proposing to show you in the second chart, should we go with $750,000 reserve, the taxpayers must also vote on that. But that again, there's no increase in the tax levy amount for either the capital project or capital reserve. So we encourage you to vote for that so we get those things done more quickly rather than waiting for a bond.
I think it's also point out that the capital project, capital reserve, that approval goes directly to what is necessary in a bond. You know, for example, the high school was saying 1/3 of the building. It's actually 4 buildings that are interconnected by hallways and separated by firewalls. The other wings, the roofs are better, but they're 25 or 26 years old. They only have a lifespan of 20. So you want to fix that. Those are going to be big projects that we have to have through a bond, but for what you will be returned in virtue of a lower bond overall, and frankly, that's all part of the tax base. So you lower one end with money you already have developed and saved on your behalf, you then have to ask for less in a bond so that it's fiscally responsible as we go forward with next year, looking at a tax cap separate from all of these that you get to deduct. You only get to deduct $10,000 in 2018-19 for your state and local taxes.
And of course, you vote on the library, they set that price, we do not. So those are issues in a few weeks, May 15th, that you'll have to vote. There's the budget, but again, voting yes for the capital project, that reserve does not, that money is there, it's coming out of the fund balance, taxpayers have already paid that. This is the voting history, regardless if it influences anybody. But you can see last year there wasn't much of a turnout. The biggest turnout was probably when we voted for full-day kindergarten, which you brought in a few years ago. So we're hoping that people realize that we can't wait for the bond for certain repairs here in our district, and we'll come out and vote the capital reserve and the capital project. It's interesting when you look at the different age groups on how many vote in each age group. Okay, that's voting on May 15th. Questions? Okay. Would you like to turn the stage for the rest of the meeting?
So now we'll have a 15-minute community question and answer period. And if you choose to ask something, please address it to the agenda that's before you or up here on the stage. There'll be an opportunity at the end of the evening to ask a question on other items as well. So that said, is there any question on the agenda that you'd like to ask now? So we'll move on to personnel. Carrie, retirement, as Gordon said, 6 retirements. We have to do one at a time.
Retirement number 1, Patricia Bunster. Resolved upon the recommendation of the superintendent, the Board of Education hereby accepts the resignation for retirement purposes of Patricia Bunster, special education teacher, effective August 1st, 2000.
Karen?
Second.
Thank you, Mike. Any comments? All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Ed?
Retirement, Patricia Corley. Resolved upon the recommendation of the superintendent, the Board of Education hereby accepts the resignation for retirement purposes of Patricia Corley, guidance counselor, effective June 23rd, 2018.
Second.
Thank you, Mike. Any comments? All in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Mike, retirement?
Sure, retirement. Dominic Casella. Resolved upon the recommendation of the superintendent, the Board of Education hereby accepts the resignation for retirement purposes of Dominic Casella, social studies teacher, effective June 23rd, 2018.
I'll second that.
Thank you, Ed. Any comments? All in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Bob?
Retirement, Andrea Kissel. Resolved upon the recommendation of the superintendent, the Board of Education hereby accepts the resignation for retirement purposes of Andrea Kissel, social studies teacher, effective June 23rd, 2018.
Second. Thank you, Lynn. Any comments? All in favor? Opposed? Okay. Lynn, retirement?
Retirement, Lisa Moran. Resolved upon the recommendation of the superintendent, the Board of Education hereby accepts the resignation for retirement purposes of Lisa Moran, science teacher, effective June 23rd, 2018. Lisa has been with us for, as many of these teachers have, for quite a number of years and been a very successful teacher.
Lynn, can I have a second?
I'll second that.
Thank you, Ed. Any comments? All in favor? Opposed? It's carried. Pete?
Number 6, retirement, Pete Shapiro. Resolved upon the recommendation of the superintendent, the Board of Education hereby accepts the resignation for retirement purposes of Peter Shapiro, technology teacher, effective June 23rd, 2018.
Second.
Thank you, Mike. Any comments?
Just a comment for all of the teachers. 6 teachers are retiring, and as Gordon had mentioned in the past, the Board of Eds worked closely with the Teachers Association to put together an incentive that was fair to them, that was a win-win for the teachers, but also a win for the district. And as you see, we have 6 retirements, and there's good and bad that comes with that. We have 6 teachers who have been here and are staples of the district, who've been teaching a long time. They're veteran teachers that do a very good job, and we're losing them. And so it's good and bad. We take them off the payroll. We're able to hire new teachers with new blood, younger, and at a lower salary that helps us. But again, we're losing people who've been here, some of whom many of you may have. Your children may have had. And so it's a tough situation. They're retiring and moving on with their lives, and I'm sure it's tough for them because they're leaving the job, the only job that they've known. They've been teaching 30 years, some of these people, and this has been their whole adult life, teaching in Mount Sinai. So thank you to them. We will miss them.
I just want to see, back onto that you're looking at probably over 150 years of teaching experience among the 6 people, most of whom have started here in Mount Sinai. I have had the privilege of working with some of them as an educator, and my children have had all but one of them. So they will be dearly missed, and I hope we realize the rich legacy that they're leaving behind for the newcomers as well.
They have been great. They've added to the legacy of Mount Sinai. But for them personally, it's extremely hard for a teacher to decide they're ready to retire. You really have to have the proper mindset and know that it's time. And I had the opportunity to sit with many of them when they turn their papers in. And I just say to them, I hope you're ready, because there's a big difference in the fall when the school buses roll by your window and you're not going to a school. So, you have to really be ready, or they'll be looking to work again in the fall. A lot of these teachers have full classes every year, and the kids can't wait to get in some of these rooms. So, it'd be difficult to replace many of these fine teachers. Thank you.
Anything else? We're voting on Pete Shapiro right now. All in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Carrie, leave of absence? Sure.
Leave of absence, Laura Tricoros. Resolved upon the recommendation of the superintendent, the Board of Education hereby approves the leave of absence request of Laura Tricoros, elementary teacher for the 2018-19 school year.
I'll second that.
Thank you, Ed. Any comments? All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Ed, school district aid.
School district aid, resolved upon the recommendation of the superintendent, the Board of Education hereby approves the determination of the high school principal to separate from service and aid effective March 12th, 2018.
Second.
Thank you, Mike. Any comments? All in favor? Opposed? It's carried. Appointments, Mike.
Sure. Varsity cheerleading coach, resolved upon the recommendation of the superintendent. The Board of Education hereby approves the following appointment. Christina Mendolia, April 19th, 2018, varsity cheerleading coach, compensation is a step 3.
Second.
Thank you, Lynn. Any comments? All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Bob, special ed.
Action items, education. Committee on Special Education resolved upon the recommendation of Of the superintendent, the Board of Education has no objections to the following special education recommendations and approves the authorization for the funds to implement the special education programs and services consistent with such as listed below.
Second.
Thank you, Mike. Any comments? All in favor? Opposed? It's carried. Lynn, Proposition 1, budget.
Proposition number 1, budget. Resolved upon the recommendation of the superintendent, the Board of Education hereby adopts the following proposition budget to be voted upon on May 15, 2018 annual meeting. Shall the proposed budget of expenditures of the Mount Sinai School District for the fiscal year of 2018-19 in the amount of $60,203,745,000 for the purposes shown in the statement thereof presented to and at the budget hearing of said school district be approved, and the amount thereof raised by levy of tax upon the taxable property within said school district after first deducting the monies available from state aid and other sources as provided by law.
Thank you. Thank you, Mike. Any comments? All in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Keith, Library Services.
Proposition 2, library services. Resolved upon the recommendation of the superintendent, the Board of Education hereby adopts the following proposition, library services, to be voted upon at the May 15, 2018 annual meeting. Resolved that for the purpose of enabling the people of this district to have the benefit of library services, the Board of Education of the Mount Sinai Union Free School District shall contract with the Comstock Public Library and the Port Jefferson Public Library for library services starting July 1st, 2018 and running through June 30th, 2019 in the amount of $1,828,599. And tax is hereby voted in such amount to be levied upon the taxable property of the district.
Thank you, Keith.
Second.
Thank you, Mike. Just want to mention those of you who want to switch your libraries, you're able to do that because in Mount Sinai we belong to Comstock and Port Jeff, and you can do that in July. So just a little FYI. Any comments? All in favor? Opposed? It's carried. Carrie, capital project?
Sure. Capital project, resolved upon the recommendation of the superintendent, the Board of Education hereby adopts the following proposition, capital project, to be voted upon at the May 15, 2018 annual meeting. Resolved that the Board of Education of the Mount Sinai Union Free School District is authorized to transfer $5 million from the district's unassigned fund balance to the capital fund to support a capital project that is to provide for the replacement and reconstruction of the high school roof, turf field, track, bleachers, press box, perimeter fencing, gates, and other security needs, and to include site work and ancillary work pertinent to the reconstruction.
Thank you, Carrie.
Second.
Thank you, Keith. That was fast. And again, just a reminder, if you could share with all your neighbors that that is merely an agreement to spend money that's already there, that will not cost the taxpayer for that any additional funding. Any other comments?
Just as to illustrate that, that is $5 million that is intended to replace these items, much necessary. What's important to recognize is that's without interest. There's no interest charged. There's no loan incurred by the school district. That's being paid for, and it will be a clean payment that does not encumber us further into the future.
Thank you, Bob. Anything else? All in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Ed, Capital Reserve Fund.
Proposition 4, Capital Reserve Fund. Resolved upon the recommendation of the superintendent, the Board of Education hereby adopts the following proposition, Capital Reserve Fund, to be voted upon at the May 15, 2018 annual meeting. Shall the Mount Sinai Board of Education be authorized to establish, pursuant to Education Law 3651, a capital reserve fund in the amount not to exceed $10 million for the purpose of future building renovations, technology, security, and capital improvements for a maximum term of 15 years. The initial sum of $400,000 together with...
It might be $750.
the initial sum of $750,000, together with additional amounts may be appropriated from any fund balances thereafter annually to such fund.
I think we're here.
Second.
Okay, so we're changing, we're amending it on the agenda to 750,000. There is a second. Are there any further comments? Again, not costing you a dime, just to remind you of that. Any other comments? All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Okay. Mike, report card.
Sure. Real property tax report card. Resolved upon the recommendation of the superintendent, the Board of Education hereby approves the real property tax report card prepared by the district's business office for the 2018 annual district meeting. And be it further resolved that a copy of said report card shall be submitted to the State Education Department by the end of the next business day following this approval.
Second?
Thank you, Lynn. Any comments? All in favor? Opposed? That's carried. BOCES, Bob?
Eastern Suffolk BOCES budget resolved upon the recommendation of the superintendent. The Board of Education hereby approves the 2018-19 Eastern Suffolk BOCES administrative budget.
Second.
Thank you, Lynn. Any comments? All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Lynn, equipment?
Obsolete equipment. Resolved upon the recommendation of the superintendent, the Board of Education hereby declares the following items as obsolete and authorizes disposal as listed.
Thank you, Lynn.
I'll second that.
Thank you, Ed. Any comments? All in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Pete, BOCES bidding?
BOCES cooperative bidding, resolved upon the recommendation of the superintendent, the Board of Education hereby approves the following resolution for BOCES cooperative bidding services as listed.
Thank you.
Chicken.
Second?
I'll
Pass.
second that.
Thanks, Ed. Any comments? All in favor?
Very really.
Opposed? Carried. All right. Carried, reimbursement.
Reimbursement for expenses regarding conferences, conventions, workshops, and meetings policy. Resolved upon the recommendation of the superintendent, the Board of Education hereby adopts the reimbursement for expenses regarding conferences, conventions, workshops, and meetings policy that was proposed at the March 27, 2018 meeting.
Second.
Thank you, Pete. This is the second reading of this policy, so assuming we all approve, it will then become policy. All in favor? Opposed? It's carried. Ed, donation?
Donation, flagpole. Resolved upon the recommendation of the superintendent, the Board of Education hereby accepts the donation of a flagpole valued at $1,000 for the varsity baseball field from Flagpole Corporation.
Second.
Thank you, Mike. Thank you to the Flagpole Corporation for quite a generous donation. It'll look great out on our varsity baseball field. Any comments? All in favor? Opposed? It's carried. Mike, lacrosse equipment?
I'm sorry.
Okay.
Resolved upon the recommendation of the superintendent, the Board of Education hereby accepts the donation of 2 lacrosse cages and 2 nets valued at $800 from the Gatz family.
Second.
Thank you, Lynn. The Gatz family has been very generous, so thank you to the Gatz family for your additional donation. Any other comments? All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Bob, budget transfers?
Budget transfer resolved upon the recommendation of the superintendent, the Board of Education hereby approves the following budget transfers for the 2017-18 school year as listed below by code.
Bob?
Second.
Thank you, Lynn. Just an FYI, the textbooks for the Columbia Reading Program that we have started an early launch of. So this money transferred will provide us with those materials right now, so we can begin the important work of getting that program going. Any other comments? All in favor? Opposed? Carried.
Bid awards
Thank
and
you.
data. Resolved upon the recommendation of the superintendent and Educational Data Services Incorporated in conjunction with the Island Cooperative bid. it is recommended that a unit price award be made to the following lowest responsible bidders for the 2018-19 school year.
I second that.
Thank you, Pete. Any comments? All in favor, sorry. Opposed? Carried. All right. Oh, there it is. Okay. This is the portion of our agenda where you are welcome to come up to the microphone, identify yourself, and ask questions that you can hold back on. So, come on down.
Where is Brad?
Brad is, I don't know. He sent his representative, Monica.
Really, you gotta come to the microphone?
Well, if you want to yell, you can yell. But it's nice.
hear you, Monica.
It's nicer for us. And,
You can all hear me, right?
Yes.
Yeah, I'm gonna stay in my nice comfy chair. So I just wanted to clarify the number of kindergartners for coming in next year. Did you say 134?
That is the number right now.
Right now, do you have a number
However, you know, the
yet?
summer, it can increase.
Okay.
We often get registration over the summer in kindergarten.
And what's the current kindergarten class size?
What is it?
120, 121.
And it was pretty small.
121?
And then one other question, what was the ELA opt-out percentage this year, or refusal rate, I'm sorry? What was the ELA refusal rate?
Much like last year, less than 50% participated.
Less than 50% participated. That's all, easy questions.
is that good?
Another question?
Hi.
Good evening, my name is Keith Knorchild. In regards to the perimeter fencing, have you guys looked into what you're planning on doing on the North Country Road side?
Good question. Good question. The North Country Road side is presently pretty open, at least for the area near the side. That's intended to be a decorative type fence. I don't want to say a brand name. Now, the extruded aluminum black fence with
Okay.
some brick posts. Its placement is uncertain, and I think we're still discussing what to do with the rest of the area, particularly near the high school cafeteria.
Now, is the fence going to be going the entire length of the school property?
Right now, there's, as you know, there's probably nothing. When you get down the hill, there is no fencing. There's a post and rail.
The reason I ask, I live in the blue house, which is on North Country right
So you
by
have a great
the
interest in that.
traffic light, yes.
Beautiful.
Yes.
And there's currently stockade fence there, which is quite old and
Very
very
old.
dilapidated.
What we'd like to do is, Mr. Sweeney just pointed out, we're going to have the architect here tomorrow look at a number of things. The board has basically decided what I believe is an 8-foot chain link on 25A, which is primarily it. The whole North Country Road is a different animal totally. You have the aesthetics and the history of North Country Road, which, you know, I've treasured since 1973 when I lived down the road a piece. So the board has really stipulated they want to choose very carefully what goes there. And opposed to the 8-foot chain link, they're thinking more 6 feet. And Bob was talking about a decorative fence, and I'm sure that you'll be pleased what happens there. It's not going to be a stockade, and we do know that stockade. We have a lot of things that need to be replaced, and that's one of those things. And we have some challenges on that road too, as well as that curb, the steel guardrail that, you know, makes the fencing a little more challenging, but obviously we move back behind this. So, you know, check with me, and you can call my office in a couple of weeks when we make that determination. I'll show it to you.
I appreciate it. One other thing I would like to bring up, this is just strictly, you know, what I've heard throughout the community, that there is a possibility that the school board is interested in removing the barn that is currently on Gertrude Goodman Drive. Now, if that is the case, I would be interested in taking it. I know they had talked about, you know, expanding for athletic fields, and I just want to put it out there that that barn was part of the house that I live in. That was that property. So I just wanted to let the board know that if they do down the road come to a decision on what they want to do with it, I would be interested in it.
It's very symbolic here on this property and part of the school, so you'll know what's going to happen with that very shortly.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for those
If we're not-
questions. Still have time if somebody else would like to come forward.
To do,
Yeah.
settle over.
Anybody else?
I make a motion to adjourn.
I just would like to, thank you, ask everybody to ask 10 people to please come out and vote next month. There are 2 seats that are up for the Board of Education, Mike Riggio and myself. I am not seeking re-election, but Mike is, and Steve Kepper, who's sitting in the front row, he is also seeking election. So there are 2 candidates who will be running for 2 positions. I'm hoping we'll still have meet the candidate night May 2nd, I believe, so at least come out and say hello to our candidates. But please, please, encourage everyone you can to vote, and also help them understand the capital reserve and the capital project votes that we need, and again, will not encumber any additional taxpayer dollars.
Just not to speak for the PTO, but generally in the past, if there's an uncontested
They don't have it.
election, they don't have it.
All right, I take that. Well, I'm sure they'll be around, and so at least try and get to say hello. And you know Mike, but Steve is newish. He presented in December on the bond committee, so these are important positions. So please, please help out there. Thank you. Thank you for coming out tonight. Have a great evening, and hopefully see you on May 8th, which is a Tuesday night. It's weird, but it's the budget hearing. So come again. Thank you. Oh, we had a motion. I didn't think about it. To adjourn. All in favor? Opposed? We're good. Thank you.